as the opposite cycle. When society reflects on harm, we usually point on two directions, either the obedience or malice. So today, we'll be critically discussing on what actually causes more harm in the society. Is it malice or is it obedience? This is Joshua. Join me right here. With me in the studio is Kingsley and Bernard. Kingsley will be on the side of malice, while Bernard will be on the side of obedience. So Kingsley, why do you think malice causes more harm in the society?
I think malice causes more harm in the society because if you look at harm in the first place, malice is the originator of harm. Without malice, there won't be anything to obey at the first place. The obedience will be kind of silent. There won't be anything. There won't be existence of harm in the first place. Because malice is the originator of the harm, obedience is just an amplifier. So, if we really want to solve the issue of harm in the society, I think we have to focus more on the malicious. Because those people, those have the intent to kill, and they know the consequence of the action. They still do it anyway. So without malice, I don't think obedience will even have anything to obey at the first place.
So Bernard, how can you clarify us that obedience causes more harm in the society?
Thank you very much, JJ. First things first, I would like to point out that, you see, whenever I pitch this idea to someone out there, upon a glance at the topic, the person would immediately think that, malice actually did cause more harm. But upon a more critical scrutiny of the topic, they will begin to unravel more insights, more ideas from the topic. And by the time you delve deeper into the case study, that's when you begin to see other facets that you ignored in the initial stage. My contender, I'm sorry to say, but I think my contender is either misinterpreting the word harm, or he probably doesn't even know the meaning. For example, if you understand the word harm, which is the key word here, and the preposition of the word more in the context, you realize that what we're talking about is scale, not intent. And when we're discussing scale, it means therefore that an originator of harm doesn't necessarily translate into how scalable to be. Because the authorship of harm doesn't necessarily mean that it will cause more catastrophe. It means therefore that the amplifier, thank God you use the word amplifier. The amplifier is a word that moves hand in hand with the word more, because that's what we're talking about here. So let's not conflict intent and scale. Let's get it right so that the advancement of this conversation will be in tune with what we're discussing.
Okay, I think my contender is getting this more wrong here. First of all, if you look at history, look at the destructive consequences of harm in the first place in society, you notice that harm doesn't happen because of the majority, the majority that obey. It happens because of the drawing board, the few that went inside, that plan, that designed the harm at the first place. Notice that plan, there will not be enough scale of the obedience. Look at the First and Second World War, especially the Second World War. You can't just blame the majority. Let me say the Nazis membership. That's not what made the Second World War stand for almost 5 years. It's because of the drawing board, the blueprint. It was so perfect because of the target and the intent to cause more harm. It was not caused by the soldier prolonging the war. No, it was the malicious people that went in there, they designed it perfectly to scale to that level. So you can't blame the obedience, my friend.
Again, my contender is in the word causes. Causes doesn't necessarily translate into scale. Scale, you must not conflate the word scale and more. If we're talking about what causes harm in society, that's where we begin to talk about the malicious actors. But when we talk about which causes more harm, that's when you have to pay attention to scale. Now we need to begin to look at the participants, the actors of what causes harm in society. If we look at the two different participants, we have those who have malicious intents and those who obey instructions without any logical or rational thinking. right? Now, first things first, what's the nature of malice, right? The nature of malice is personal. It is individualistic in nature. You can agree with me, right? Now, it means, therefore, should I have a malicious intent? It means I need a driving force to be able to, for it to be able to even make sense in that place. So I can have a blueprint in my bedroom, I can have a blueprint in my parlor, but without any apparatus to be able to advance this my blueprint, then it will remain an idea. So therefore, if you look at the two sections, right, we have people who have intention to cause harm. They want to cause harm, right? Now, the nature of which they cause the harm doesn't play any role here. For example, you and I can have intention to cause harm, but the skill, the method, the techniques will be different. You want to cause harm, you want harm to be prolonged suffering. I want it to be gory, fast, and bloody. It's too different. So, the skill, when we begin to talk about the skill, the aftermath, the effect, the outcome of that harm, which one is more catastrophic, which one is more scalable, as when those who obey comes in. You will draw an analysis from history. I'd like to use your analysis against you, if you permit me. Go through history, including the First World War and Second World War that we spoke about. You realize that what made the World War to be catastrophic was not the blueprints, but the logistics. The logistics in the sense that it is the soldiers who carry out the order. It is the train that transports victims to be exterminated. It is the clerks working in the office doing all the paperwork. These are what enabled it to reach such scale, such magnitude.
So you're trying to say if those guys, they are not obedient?
Yes, it means therefore that the scale will be reduced, it will be limited. So those few malicious people, they cannot do much. You realize that, but when you have lots of people who are willing, lots of participants who are willing to carry out that instruction, that's when it becomes scalable. That's when it becomes more catastrophic. That was what happened in what? The Holocaust. That was what happened in the Holocaust. The Holocaust was as a result of people obeying instruction without any rational thinking of themselves. And so when you have such kind of people in society, even if you remove those malicious people, you realize that yes, the system still exists. The system still exists, and it's mentioned that without harm, the originator of harm in the first place, society, there will be no harm in society to obey in the first place. What you're missing is harm can happen even without malicious intent. For example, there are times where you're doing something because, this is what should be done. But if it causes harm to people, not necessarily because it is malicious in nature, but because, well, it is structural and systemic. That's how society works.
Can you give us an example of what you just said now?
Well, example of situations where harm are being caused when it doesn't necessarily mean malicious intent. For example, if you look at our Nigerian system, so many people are harmed. For example, farmers can no longer produce more crops because they don't have access to fertilizer. And then you see that our economy is actually grappling. It's trying to survive. You see that there's systemic poverty in Nigeria. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean there are specific part of people who are malicious towards the masses. Doesn't necessarily mean so. It could be because it is a systemic issue, structural issue. There isn't enough resources to go around for everybody. So therefore, people begin to be selfish, and you could be selfish and not necessarily malicious. You could be selfish because I prefer myself over you, and that's it. And therefore, I want the resources for myself. For me, by accumulating the resources for myself, it means you have less resources and you get to be harmed. So you realize that from the perspective of the victim, it has nothing to do with the intention of what caused that harm, but the harm did occur. Thank you.
So, Kingsley, it says something about intention. So, is it that someone that is obedient and has good intention can also do something? He explained it that the person can also do something and the thing will cause more harm. Why? I want to know how to prove to us that someone that has good intention can be malicious at the same time. Because you now you are letting us know that what causes more harm are those who are malicious. So say something about this.
Okay, thank you. Just like the intention you mentioned, right? You know, malice is intentional. Obedience is often maybe based on pleasure, based on fear, coercion, or misinformation. You know, I can just come and tell you guys that, oh, like for example, I will not come, go to the southeast and tell the Igbos that, you guys should prepare. This Nigeria wants to kill us. They will think they are doing it for the better good to keep the Igbo culture, to protect the Igbo culture. Remember, the malicious people do best to cause a war, a tribal war. But now I'm doing it, me the obedient, I'm doing it thinking I'm protecting the greater good. I want to protect the Igbo race. You see about intention. I'm the obedient obeying the thing, but I don't have an intention to cause harm. I think I'm doing good. But the malicious always know that this is disgusting. They know their victim. They know the scale of the discussion. They know that people is going to die. Yes, but let's do it anyway. But me, I think something's going to happen. I think outside is against us. I think these people is against us. So let's fight. Let's protect our people. But the malicious, they already plan this thing on that ground. They just come based on with propaganda, deceive the majority. So you see, you can't always blame the obedient because they think they are doing it for the greater good, or sometimes they be coerced. If you look at the Second World War, some people are forced into the army. Even as soon as our Nigerian Biafra war, they force at least of 16 years old into the army. They obey not because of their wants. They can't help it because of fear, because of pressure. You see? So what is things you think about this intention? Who are you going to blame? My friend. Are you going to blame those people that just obey? And now my friend here is mentioning that they obey without rational thinking. You just conclude. Why do you conclude so, my guy? You just conclude that some people they rationalize, they think it. Yes, but if you think that they are doing it to the good, you can't just think they don't apply. They apply most of the way, they apply logic.
Then they don't fall under the class of obedience, but under the class of malicious.
No. You can't say that. Obedience.
If I buy into a malicious idea because I understood the idea, it means I am malicious.
What if you are on pressure?
What if you are misinformed?
If I am misinformed or pressured,
you're no longer malicious.
Yes, I'm no longer malicious, but I am being obedient. But that is different.
Now, who pushed you into that obedience? Listen. This guy don't just wake up in the morning to cause harm. Besides this kind of peaceful, then these malicious people, they got out an idea to cause harm. Then they have, remember, there's always obedient people. Obedience is replaceable. Remove obedience, another person will replace it. But just remove the malicious person, the crime has ended. Trust me. When Hitler died in the Second World War, that's when the Second World War ended. Because he was the originator of the idea. He's the malicious one there. So now, what does that tell you? And once the malicious person is taken out, that is the end of harm. But they kill one obedient person and now they place. Trust me, if you say I'm not going to do it.
Are we talking about origin and authorship of harm or scale?
What causes more harm, right?
Yes.
We're talking about what causes more harm. So now I'm going to let you know that if there's no malice at the person, there are obedient people all around. Yeah, they can obey order without being destructive.
What we're discussing here is we are living in a world where there's harm. So which among these two causes more?
Of course, that's
what we're discussing. Please do not misinterpret what we're discussing here. We must have an understanding of what we're discussing here before we can even advance this conversation. If not, it is useless.
I think you're not getting me right. I think we are seeing the same thing.
You keep tracing back to the originator, to the author of that harm. But that's not what we're discussing here. We're discussing in a system where harm already exists.
So what causes
which causes more harm? Is it because there are malicious people who we perpetrate the harm, or there are people who will just follow orders? Now I'm going to give a scenario. Let's assume that of course, from the definition of these two terms, we realize that malice is usually personal. Everybody conjure up his own malicious thoughts. And in the case of the narrative, because there are a series of persons who their malicious thoughts aligned. Now, let's picture a world where the number of malicious people is equal to the number of obedience. Remember, of course, from the definition, it doesn't necessarily mean obedience is mass-based, and the malice is actually individual-based, right? But I'm going to feed your idea and still show you that it is indeed obedience that causes more harm. Let's assume in a society where we have 1,000 people who are malicious, 1,000 people who are prone to obey any instruction given to them without thinking, because that's basically what disobedience.
You're trying to say someone that's obedient doesn't think?
Yes.
No, you don't.
Listen to me.
You can't say
listen to me. The discussion we're having here are people who follow order without necessarily thinking about the consequences.
Yes,
that is what we're discussing here.
Without I don't think they know the consequences.
The idea,
but no, they know the consequences.
The idea is that they followed the order. That's what we're discussing.
Yes.
So okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that okay, whether they actually buy into the idea or not, but they did follow the order. They are prone to follow the order. That's what we're discussing here, right? Now we have these people, right? Now, what happens in this side where there are malicious people? You are malicious. I am malicious. He's malicious. What happens if we want to perpetrate harm to maybe somebody out there, to Mr. D, right? What happens is we have conflicting method of inflicting that harm. So we have a society of chaos even between ourselves. Check the French Revolution that happened in the 1780s to late 1780s to late 1790s, right? What happened during the reign of terror? There were situations where there was terror, and the terror began to eat even those who were perpetrating the terror. You realize that at the end of it all, if we're all malicious, by the time all our victims are done, it will begin to eat us. So the situation is that you have different methods. For example, you want to cause harm to somebody. You want the person to die quickly but bloody. I want the person to undergo series of emotional pain, prolonged pain. You and I will begin to conflict. How do we kill? So you and I will begin to discuss how we're going to inflict that pain or harm, and it's like the person is still there looking at us. But now the other scenario is there are people who are willing to obey harm. Guy, kill that person. There is no conflict. There's just obedience and efficient execution. So which causes more harm at scale? Now I'm going to walk you through a procedure. I'm going to ask you a series of questions and we'll see how we're able to establish. Now, first things first, would you agree with me, right? Because I want to establish some sort of skill here, right? Would you agree with me that harm and skill require coordination?
Yes.
You agree, right?
Yes.
Now, in a system where coordination happens, we're talking about established institutions, rule following, correct?
Yeah.
So, in what if look at the analysis, look at the relationship. Scalable harm require coordination. Coordination require rule following, established institution. And what do we mean by rule following? People obey certain rules. So we have what causes more harm. We need coordination. To be able to have coordination, we have established systems and institutions and rule following. And rule following are people who are obedient enough to follow that rule. From this, we can have a conception. Indeed, people who are prone to follow rule, who are obedient to follow that rule, would be able to translate into coordination, which will in turn cause more skill.
Okay, I think
this is sound.
No. I think you are trying to contradict issue here. I think I see what you are doing there. Okay. But first of all, thank God you say coordination. Without coordination, all those things you talk wouldn't even add up to harm. Add up to the skill you're talking about. Who bring the coordination at the first place? The top general, the top malicious people.
That's correct.
They coordinate it. So coordination, the scale will not be scalable, and the harm won't be scalable.
Now, thank you very much. Now, assuming
now listen, remember, we're talking about more.
Yes,
more.
Yes, exactly.
We're talking about more. The coordination, without that coordination, maybe probably 1,000 people, right, instead of 2 million people. So that is if the obedient follow their own instinct. Let's just kill, let's just
exactly.
Imagine the obedient follow their own instinct without coordination. You guys just go without any strategy in place. The skill will be less.
If you argue,
even with the population.
If you argue
with the population, with the let's focus on this here, my guy.
Yes, that's it. If you argue that without the blueprints, the plan, the coordination,
yes,
there will be no skill. I will also argue that with the blueprints, without the tool, there will be no skill. If you go in that direction, you realize that you're contradicting yourself.
No.
Yes, if without you said without without those that will coordinate it, then there will be no coordination. Now, if there are those to coordinate but nobody to coordinate, it's the same thing. So you see that they're conflicting. So if you go that direction, it's the same thing. Self-contradictory.
No, it's not the same thing. I can give you an example.
Scale.
Right? Listen. Please, sorry. I don't know if I cut you short, but sorry. I want you to understand something. I'll give you an example of obedience that happened, as a result of obedience, mass, just mass trial that happened, but the number of scale was not so low.
Okay.
You can take maybe for instance in northern part of Nigeria, something will just happen, haram. You understand? Without anybody championing it, let's bring the propaganda to kill a certain number of people. It just happens spontaneously without any plan. Think it doesn't scale through the highest a day to end. Like, let me just say something does happen, they'll say, oh, they insult our prophet, or they insult maybe my brother, without any plan. Nobody has gone to the drawing board to cause that thing. You don't see maybe the thing died down after that day. Right?
List any historical massacre. List any historical event that caused harm in mass number without a level of obedience.
That's the level of obedience.
We're talking about a situation where we remove one and leave the other, not where one utilizes the other.
No, I'm trying to let you know. No, I don't really think I really understand where you're coming from, right? I don't think I understand.
You need to break down this question.
Yeah, so you're buying into the idea that eventually, yes, there is somebody that needs to be able to do the planning.
It's a malicious person.
Yes, there's really a malicious person.
Yeah.
But you're still buying into my idea that suggests that yes, before it will get to scale, that malicious person requires those people to.
So you're trying to say a malicious person need an obedient person
for it to reach that scale.
Okay.
No, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so what are you trying to say?
No, I'm trying to say that
and
won't really scale without coordination, without the malicious people. That's what I'm trying to say. So cut out the malicious people, right? The harm will not be more.
Okay. What we're going to do is have a system where we single out, if this one exists, single out the other. If this one exists, single out the other. And give me an analysis.
My friend, obedience always exists, population always exists.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
Listen.
If you remove those few malicious authors, that system of obedience still exists.
But without harm. That they're not harmful.
That is the problem. You think that
now listen, the obedient people always in society, they can never be in society where they're not obedient.
Exactly.
Right?
That is why
think it. There's always obedient people, but we are living peacefully, we are living less harmful. But you just take only one malicious person to go inside and think, plan, design.
Are you saying that there are no malicious people?
What did you say?
Are you saying there are no malicious people who have gone to their social media to try to, bring up an uproar?
No, there's always been too.
They have been. And do you know why we do not have any harm in scale? Because people were not obedient. They didn't obey it. That's it. Look at Rwanda's war that killed millions of people. There was a broadcast, and there were people willing to obey that broadcast. Look at the Nazism. How did he start? How did Adolf Hitler start? He has to look for people who are willing to. They took him as a god. That was how the Nazists took Adolf Hitler as a god. So therefore, anything that came out of his mouth, they executed without any complaint. Now I'm going to walk you through the Nuremberg trial. The Nuremberg trial happened in 1944, right? Where the international community were trying to persecute those who perpetrated the Holocaust, right? The Second World War, right? So there's somebody, Adolf Eichmann. He's one of the generals of Adolf Hitler who killed so many people. He engineered mass killing. He was a killing machine per se, right? So when he was asked, why would you do something like this? His response was, I was following orders. Now, there was a researcher in that particular trial. She observed that at the end of it all, the problem here was that most of these guys just believe that it is just their duty. They were following orders. They don't necessarily worry about, you realize that in such kind of system where you are structured to follow order, you don't think about the consequences. You think about
whether they structured to follow order or they were being obedient.
They were being obedient because there was an order. When you give that order, it is their duty to execute that order. For example, even what happened in Vietnam in 1969, I think, the US soldiers killed civilians. Now, most of them reported that they were confused, they were agitated. But why did you still kill them? Well, because there was an order given. So they obeyed the order. Now, if there were no people obedient, if those soldiers are like, no, we cannot, no, we have to think, these people are civilians, no, we cannot do this, there will be no murder. So you need to be able to check. That's why, what's her name? Hannah Arendt. She was the social psychologist who was present in the Nuremberg trial, and she was able to come up with something we call the agent shift. Agent shift is where, when I'm in a situation where I am more prone to follow order, what will be going on in my head is, it's not my fault, so I'm just doing my job. I'm following order because it was given to me, so therefore it is necessary. So at that point, when you're giving the order, you no longer think, is this thing bad? No, you think, is this required? If the order requires it, therefore I am obliged to execute it.
My friend, yeah, I think I get you. But first of all, you have to understand there's what they call principle in army. These guys you're talking about, they're not just merely an obedient people. These guys are military men, which they are going to obey order no matter what. Right? That's what make military.
Yes.
Kind of single-handed. That's what make military perfect. That's what will even make them win the war. Because if they have
conflict of
interest, they won't in this or that. So you can't blame those people as being obedient without reasoning.
No, I don't blame
That's
them.
one of the principles of
I don't blame them.
Now listen,
I don't blame them.
Listen, at the long run.
I'm giving you a scenario where order was followed and harm was caused, and if order was not followed, harm will not be caused.
It's not possible for order not to be followed.
So now let's try to build our society to our daily activities.
Yes,
okay?
yes. Now you listen. At the end of the day, you brought about history, about all these guys you just called now. Maybe most of the viewers, most of the population, the world, and the viewers out there, they just had the name for the first time because of their obedience, their followers. History doesn't remember followers because history understand responsibility. Now, if you talk about Second World War, they remember the lives of Adolf Hitler, the Nazis, general, those people that killed into the Joseph Goebbels, they remember those people. This always remember the malicious, not the obedient, because they know where responsibility lies.
Or perhaps convenience.
No, not convenient. Trust me.
Well, convenience.
Humans always know where responsibility lies. To say the society know where harm begins. And trust me, if you're talking about harm, you have to talk about hierarchy. If you don't talk about hierarchy, that means you want to distort moral. You want to twist history. Talking about responsibility in the society, where did the harm start from? From the top.
If you talk about hierarchy, then you agree with my point.
No. When did it start? From the up? If you do the up, there will not be harm. It started from the up. The drawing board, those going into planets. You talk about even if for persecution for trial, they always start with those people. They don't go for those that obey others because they are not the reason for those things to scale to that level.
Yes, because it is convenient for you to be able to go after the perpetrator, those who did the blueprint. It's just necessary.
What if it's not convenient? What if what if
it means that you have to try millions of people who follow that order? So it is a convenience even for the international community to be able to go after those people who started it.
Malice started the harm, right?
Yes.
Started the harm, right?
Yes.
So
starting, I always mention starting doesn't translate into skill.
It translates into skill.
No. Obedience is look. If Malice is a spark, right? It's a match. Yeah. On fire.
Yeah.
That is malice. What is obedience? Oxygen. It is oxygen that causes furnace. If you use matches to burn a fire, it will remain a flame, and that's it.
So now let me ask this question.
But you need oxygen and fuel, which is now obedience in this sense, to be able to cause a furnace. Bro, from this we have a conception. From this we can able to establish with beyond reasonable doubt that indeed it is the oxygen that caused the harm, even if it was the match that originated the fire. So somebody originates something has nothing to do with the skill. But if there is somebody who engineer, if there's an apparatus that will engineer that skill, that particular fire, if there's somebody that will blow that fire to catch, that's where the skill will expand.
Let me ask this question.
Okay.
There's a malicious person here, and there are obedient people. So now, if this malicious person is killed, will it end the conflict?
Yes.
It will end the conflict. If
No.
the obedient people are killed, will it end the conflict when the malicious person is still alive?
No, it won't. It won't.
Sorry, I need you to rephrase your question again.
This is a malicious person, yeah?
A single person.
It's a good person, yeah, and this is an obedient person, a single person. Because both of you here, you're trying to say
Which causes more?
Yeah, which one is more?
Which one to start it?
Then you're trying to say there must be a malicious person before
start it.
to start it before you be an obedient person. Now this is the malicious person starting it, and this is the obedient person taking the order. So the malicious person is killed. Now, will it end the conflict or the conflict will continue?
If the obedient person is killed, right?
No, if the malicious person is killed,
It will end the conflict.
it will end the conflict.
Yeah, because the
Then
idea
now,
dies with him.
if the obedient person is killed, will it end the conflict or the malicious person will still find a way?
It will be replaced immediately when the obedient person is killed or he refuses order. It doesn't you no longer buy with the idea. You can be replaced.
So
Right.
what if there is no obedient person again?
If there's no obedient person,
What
again,
happens when there is no obedient person? What happens to their plan?
To the malicious.
very malicious.
He will be able to cause harm, but it will be limited. Do you understand?
No, listen. You guys forget something.
Okay.
Okay, yes, I think that's possible, but that's not always the case.
It is reasonable, and we're trying to establish what is reasonable.
Yeah, it's reasonable, but
It is reasonable for us to agree that if you remove this person, the scale of which this guy will be able to perpetrate that harm will be limited.
Okay, now listen. Remember, we are still talking about history here, right?
Correct.
So, is there a point in time where an obedient person is removed, or the people are removed, and the scale just ended without the death or the capture of the malicious person?
Now, thank you
It has
very
never
much.
happened, right? No, let's don't Hitler. The second one.
No, don't conclude. Because you ask me a question, allow me to answer your question. Because perhaps it is possible that you're wrong.
Okay, I think.
So ask your question so that I will answer it.
Okay, has there ever been a time in the history of the world, the universe, or maybe a war that a malicious person is killed? An obedient person was removed, or a co-obedient person was removed, and the war ended.
See, the nature of obedience
or the harm
is
ended.
that the nature of obedience is structural, systemic. What that meant is it always remains with the system. You cannot remove an obedient person because the obedient people are what comprise it. It's the reason why obedience is mass-based.
Yeah.
Now, in the other hand, so when you ask that question of is there any point in that when you remove, as if I don't know, you're sounding
You said
unserious.
obedience is mass based.
Yes.
So if obedience is mass based, then they are the one causing them harm more.
Thank you. That's the point.
No. It's mass based means due to that population.
Yes,
right?
population. There are many people.
Number one, naturally, humans don't think for themselves. They say 90% of humans wait for others to think for them. Just about 2-3% of women think for themselves, right? In fact, in Nigeria now, a lot of people just want what to happen. That is why you see anything when the United States president said, "I want to invade Nigeria," the rest will be happy. They want it to happen, but they cannot think of how to let it happen. So if one malicious person now should go in and think, plan, and how to get weapon and how to strategically cause harm, plan, in a mass form to cause harm, to get weapon, to cause chaos, lawlessness.
I agree.
And it comes out, listen, the war will happen in Nigeria, right? And it will be unstoppable.
I agree that indeed we need a malicious person to be able to spark the fire.
Not spark, trust me.
Listen to me.
There.
No, listen to me. I agree that we need somebody to be able to come up and design the blueprints and design all those stuff.
Yeah.
But designing doesn't translate into skill. That's what you need to understand. The person who actually perpetrated the Rwanda genocide has no idea that millions of people of that scale will be killed. He has no idea. There are no psychological base that we can establish that actually he had it that 2 million people will be killed or 3 million people. No. Now it was when that broadcast happened, there were people willing to obey what he said. And that was why I'm very sure that he regretted what happened. Because the film was so massive that it caused international attention. So he started it, he engineered it, but it has nothing to do with the outcome. So we must understand causation and outcome. What causes? Fine, malicious people causes it. But outcome is you need that tool. If you want to go to your farm, yes, you can be a farmer, but then the tool you use to farm determine the scale of your farming. For example, if you use hoe to farm, of course you're malicious, you're a farmer. And if you use tractor, which one determine how much work you get to do for your farm? Tell me, my friend, answer the question. Your hoe or your tractor?
In most cases, it's the tractor.
Yeah, the tractor. Do you know what that means? Listen to me. Do you know what that means?
No.
It means the tool that the farmer use to farm is what determines the scale. Do you understand?
Yeah.
The tool that the farmer have access to is what determines the scale.
So
Not
if there are more obedient
yes.
individuals,
Then scale. Crime can happen in scale. But if those obedient people are not there, it's not happen in scale.
but you didn't think the ideas of what the obedient people are doing is still coming from the malicious person.
Of course, we've established that it is coming from the malicious person.
And the malicious person can be bringing more tools. Can be giving them more tools.
That's more obedient people.
No, you can no, listen.
What are the tools we're talking about here?
My friend, you mentioned something about the one that genocide, right? About the originator probably getting it later, right?
No, I don't necessarily that doesn't moral bearing. So whether he regrets it or not.
I know, right? Sometimes, yeah, don't you say like sometimes the originator, the malicious, doesn't see this coming, like doesn't see the scale of this harm.
Yes,
right?
yes, that's my point.
But do you know that you can stop it? But no, you proceed anyway. I don't feel like I stopped the Second World War in 1942.
Not necessarily.
You can't.
Not necessarily.
Listen, that's why they're obedient. They obey him. That means like he was enjoying it. Oh wow, this death is good. Let's kill more. Let's design more. So if he can stop it, if he wants to, a malicious person can stop harm. But no, they decide anyway. We understand that yeah, people are going to die, people are dying, but let's continue.
Yeah.
Once you see, that's where the more harm coming.
No, they want harm because
they comes in because of the obedient person. Still adamant, still enjoying it.
No, and the obedient or the malicious.
The malicious person is still enjoying the harm.
You can be in your room. You can be in your room and be enjoying it. It doesn't matter. But when you have that tool available for you to perpetrate it, that is what matters.
That's what matters.
I use the scenario of the tractor and the hoe and the farmer. It's the same thing. We can liken it to this scenario.
At the end of the day,
my friend, can you answer the question?
Now what?
I want to draw you back to the farmer.
Would they agree on that? That yeah, if the farmer is a tractor, he works faster. He works in the last scale, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is which the farmer and the tool use. Which one determine the outcome of the farm?
The two.
You know, I'm not with this question because then they were using hoe and they were farming more. They were using hoe then and they were farming more. So it still lies on the malicious.
No. Listen, they were not farming more. They were not farming more. You were wrong for saying that when they were using hoe.
They were farming more.
No, you're wrong.
How am I wrong?
For every hour, how long does it take for you to use tractor to farm more? It's obvious that no, tractor farm more. The reason why olden days they don't do it is because they were not available. But yes, if you want to check it, you can practicalize it. Take somebody with tractor and take somebody with hoe. Take them to the farm. Who will farm more? Forget about in olden days, blah blah blah. It doesn't add.
But my friend, do you know that those are two different things?
No,
right?
they are not. Please establish why they are different.
Those are two different. You're talking about human. You're talking about machine.
Machines actually.
Listen. Naturally, machines are bound to make things easier for people, right?
Correct.
And if it's tractor say that, oh, I think I'm producing more than I should. Maybe I think you go for a lesser, or I think I'm working more than I should. I think you go for a lesser tool, you know, or you cannot choose to stop.
The farmer or
the farmer that you still use, right? If at any point in time you think, oh, I think I'm working, maybe they pay him per hour or per day. And he doesn't want to finish in the.
No, there's no need for one.
No,
we're talking about availability of tool.
Bernard Kinsley. You know, if we continue this discussion, we may know there must not be an agreement. There must not be an agreement because conversation like this help us to think deep. We have come to the end of this discussion. I know you have many things to say. I know you have many points to give to our audience, but we have come to the end of this discussion. Now is the time to let our audience give their own suggestion on the comment box and give their own insist. So I thank everyone watching this. I thank Kingsley for his good points, trying to let us know that the malicious ones are the one causing more harm. And also thank you, Bernard, for also proving to us that obedience, which I'm very surprised, how can obedience cause more harm in the society? Like, how can someone be obedient and it will be causing more harm in the society? Because everyone believes that those who are malicious cause more harm, but here we are today, Bernard, letting us know that obedience causes more harm. So thank you.
I think our viewers will have to agree with me especially that the malicious. I think any reasonable person will agree with that. With the point in hand. And history too. History too distorts. And history are giving evidence. Humans can never be wrong. Take history, they'll tell you that the malicious is always. That's
so our viewers, please do well to give us your suggestion in the comment box. Please do well to do that. And also like, comment, follow our other pages. We have our Twitter, Open Cycle. We have our Facebook, the Open Cycle. We also have TikTok, the Open Cycle, and also our Instagram, the Open Cycle. So thank you, everyone.